All right, let's head up to the studio because tonight on the program, maybe it's news you can use. It's all about change, changing your life for love and changing the planet to make it better. Don't go changing Canada. I love you just the way you are. This is The Hour. Nice to see you. Welcome to your program. I'm your boyfriend, George Stambolopoulos. She's laughing. She doesn't laugh all the time, I'll tell you. Hope you have a lovely night. How's your long weekend? Was it a good weekend? You enjoyed your long weekend? Was it wonderful? Just waking up from your turkey coma now? Perhaps you didn't even know you were in a coma. That's how much you ate? You didn't even realize you worked today? I'm sure your boss totally appreciated that. But don't worry about it. I believe in you. You'll bring it tomorrow. At work, you will bring it tomorrow. You better bring it tomorrow, because if you think about it Thursday, you're thinking about the weekend. Friday, complete and total write-off. Now that I think of that, why are they paying you? What are we... Being a man who grew up in a Ukrainian home, I had a lot of pierogies on the weekend. A lot. I feel like I was a character in Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, man. I was just... I decided that season 6, I'm going to go into my fat Elvis years. I start with the weight, the eating, then I bring in the suits. Very excited about tonight's show. Tonight's show, we have an Oscar nominee, amazing in the film Pieces of April, 6 Feet Under. She's been described as the best thing about any movie that she's ever been in, which is not a bad compliment. Miss Patricia Clarkson is here tonight. Very excited about that. All right, and not just that, but also on the show, perhaps the greatest export from Australia since Crocodile Dundee. Tim Flannery is here tonight. I saw him in the green room. He didn't bring that hat. I want that hat. Tim is like think of like Al Gore, except he's an actual scientist. He's got a new book about climate change. He's smart and rugged, and by rugged I mean Australian, and he's got a beard. Tim Flannery is here. It's great to have him back on the show. First, his bio.
Okay, George, when you think global warming, who's the first person you think of? Maybe Al Gore? Well, you know what? Before he made an inconvenient truth, there was this guy, Australia's Tim Flannery. Tim is an explorer, biologist, conservationist, and author of The Weathermakers. That book came out in 2005, and it really put climate change on the map. If you were in politics, you might call it a game changer. You see, Flannery laid out what is now widely accepted. Climate change is real, we're responsible for it, and we need to act now to prevent disaster. And people started to listen. Politicians, celebrities, businesses. Our own David Suzuki called it one of the most important books of the young century. Well, Tim's still beating the drum. He's got a new book called Now or Never, Why We Need to Act Now to Achieve a Sustainable Future. And that's not all. In December in Denmark, the UN is holding a big conference on global warming. Tim is the chair of the Copenhagen Climate Council and is pushing for a new climate change deal before it's too late.
Everybody, please welcome back to the program, Tim Flannery.
Thank you.
How are you?
Very good, thank
you. Excellent. Titles of books are interesting to me, but the line after that is always, I think what really sells the point, why we need to act now to achieve a sustainable future. Your reason as to why we should act now?
Well, late 2009 is just a critical time in world history. We've got the most important meeting since World War II, as Lord Stern calls it, coming up in Copenhagen. It's the moment when the nations of the world are going to get together to either solve this problem or not solve the problem. And it's the fulcrum that'll sort of drive change, from there on, or else not.
A lot of people, knew of Kyoto as part of the Accord, even more people than knew it was even city, right? Like Kyoto became to mean something so much. Do people have different expectations of Copenhagen than they would of Kyoto?
I think so. I mean, Kyoto was really seen as an environmental treaty, and we've learned a lot about climate change since then, and we've learned that it's not just the environment that's at stake. In a sense, the diplomacy that's going on now up to Copenhagen is a diplomacy that will either keep us at peace for the rest of the century or possibly, if it fails, maybe lead to conflict and war, because all of the triggers are there for that. We've got a looming food crisis, we've got rising sea levels, mass migration, political destabilisation of large countries. Any of those could lead to conflict, and so that diplomacy is just essential.
Has the economy and what it's gone through, has that changed how people will approach what happens in Copenhagen?
Well, strangely enough, George, I think that the economic meltdown's actually helped the climate issue. Partly it's reduced emissions, it's the worst possible way to do it.
Because nobody can afford to drive,
That's right, closing factories, all that sort of stuff is pretty bad. But beyond that, it's actually taught us a little bit about how you deal with global crises. And we don't have the G8 anymore, just the powerful 8 countries. We've got the G20, which is much more representative and much more powerful for that reason. And we're starting to see the G20 now turn its attention to things like climate change. So in a way, it teaches us how to work together. So
that's what I wondered, because you've been hearing the last little while more conversation about taking the global economy away from the US dollar, using the euro. And I know that there are a lot of political implications, certainly in this part of the world, actually the whole world. But I wondered, with the US dollar being what it is, comes the power, and with the power comes the ability to impose your values, which we know that America has done. If the US dollar loses value and the euro has more value, the European Union have different values.
That's right.
Will you see those values be applied to something like the conversation with climate change?
Look, I think the balance of power is actually shifting to the Far East. We now have South Korea, Japan and China talking about creating an East Asian economic union, a bit like you see in Europe. And that would be immensely powerful. It may even bring its own new currency in 10, 20 years' time. And what we're seeing in that area too is the real leading edge of the green revolution. The greenest economic stimulus package ever was South Korea's earlier this year. We've seen Japan now commit to a 25% emissions reduction by 2020. And China is really altering, because the Communist Party have realised that their hold on power very much depends upon dealing with climate change and other environmental issues. And so it's seen as a threat to their power rather than just an environmental issue. So I think that's going to drive change in a very spectacular way in China in years to come.
The conversations around climate change and global warming has been talking about the rising temperatures of the planet, and then we've gone through a period the last handful of years where it's been cooling. How does that change the argument? And because a lot of people are now saying that perhaps the initial thought about global warming was not accurate, and that new data has come in.
Look, there is some sceptics who propagate that view, and there's probably some people who haven't thought very deeply about it who just accept it without much thought. But, we have to understand that weather is different from climate, And there are climatic cycles, some of which run for a decade or more, which can result in regional cooling or even a global cooling to some extent against the larger trend, Right. But to understand climate change, we need to look at the long-term trend and the global trend. And if we do that, we look over the century and look at the global temperature, we can see that rise is still very much in place. In fact, it's at the upper edge of the modelling.
Have you seen an example where, we want to bring down big corporations for a long time, the ones that people thought were harming the public. People thought you just couldn't do that. And then the fall of big tobacco was, I think, a sign of the power of the people, right? And something like this, is there a big historical example that people can look to say, look, we can do this sort of thing if we want to. We can convince governments. Because in Canada, the government doesn't do very much. In America, the government hasn't done very much. And the people don't seem to mind because they elect governments that don't really seem to do that much. So that shows that people, even though it's a priority to them in polls, it's not a priority to them when it goes into the polling booth. So how do you show people that there's history where we can pull this off?
I think that we're making that history now, and you see it a little bit with the global economic crisis. There was no more powerful group of people in the world until recently than the bankers and the investment bankers, and we've seen them brought low. And what that has taught us is that the business model has to change. Up until then, a lot of people accepted that if a business looked after its employees and it made a profit, it was a good business. Now, that actually describes a criminal syndicate just as well as a business, right? That idea. Sure. A good business in the 21st century is a business with a firm moral and ethical foundation that delivers benefits to its society and its environment. And that's the only sustainable business model. And we've learned through the global meltdown and the banking crisis, we've had that lesson reinforced. And it's going to be transferred now to the energy sector and to other sectors of our society. And I'm sure that by the mid-century, we are going to see that model will have just forever shifted, and we'll look back at the barbaric practices of the early 21st century and say, how could people mine lead and poison 10% of the kids in a village? That will be a thing of the past.
When you look at when you look at people versus governments versus corporations, I think in the last little while, a lot of the attention has been placed on the people. Change the way you're living bit by bit by bit. As this climate change debate has got on, do you think the focus should still be there, or is it time to expand that?
It's always had to go in parallel. You know, there is no big and complex problem that can be solved only by government, and that is axiomatic of any problem that we have in our society. We need people, industry and government working together in synergy to solve this, and the reason individual leadership is important and the efforts of individuals is that it empowers those individuals to actually take further action, politically or in their business life or whatever, you know. And we have seen some dramatic changes, George, over the last few years. You know, when I started this and founded the Copenhagen Climate Council 3 years ago, our best estimate was that about 10% of businesses really got it and were pushing for change. The number is now much bigger. We've still got the dinosaurs, but let's grow, the leading edge is growing.
I remember when we first had you on the hour with the Weathermakers, you had this great trailer for the book, and that was a long time ago, though. Have you seen significant growth? Are you optimistic about where this conversation is going?
Just think about where we were 5 years ago. George Bush in power, you know, with another number of years to run. Yeah. John Howard in Australia, you know, and the skeptics in full force all over the place. That has now changed, and we're not where we need to be to solve the problem, but we have moved forward. I do hold real fears that the time is just too short between now and Copenhagen to forge the understanding that we need.
So there won't be a deal per se, there won't be an accord?
I can't say, but all I can say is that the groundwork hasn't been done for a fully implementable and detailed accord to be announced then. I hope we'll get something that can be the headlines and we fill in the rest later. Sure. Among the good things that have happened, China has moved incredibly, as we were saying earlier. The US has moved.
Well, that's the big thing, right? Because people think that it almost doesn't matter what the rest of the world does. If China and the US don't sign on, forget about it.
Exactly. And it's funny when you come to Canada and you still hear people say, China's the problem. Yeah. Actually, no, it isn't. Canada's the problem now. You know, it's not China anymore.
Yeah, Canada this is not a priority for this country at this moment.
It's not, and if just from the international negotiations perspective, I must say I'm confused by the Canadian position because it's one of silence. You know, the most important meeting since World War II, and this country isn't engaging. And I just don't know, I don't really know why that is.
I suspect they don't think it is that important to them. I don't know. I'm just saying that maybe that's how they're perceiving it. And so when you sit around, is Canada not showing up? Is there an empty chair with Canada and like a donut? Like what's going on here?
Well, it's sort of the wet blanket, really, when they come in. We showed in Thailand just a few days ago where, you know, dozens of representatives of the developing world walked out of the meeting when the Canadian representative started speaking because what they were saying was just so incompatible with, you know, with progress in this area. So it's...
But they're obviously, I mean, the government, they're smart in that government, so they're taking a position on purpose because they believe in this. Do you find that there is way to... Can you find common ground between countries like Canada and the international community?
Sure. I mean, one of the biggest drivers is just jobs in the green economy. You know, if Canada doesn't get moving on this and doesn't start to develop its own green economy and its own renewable energy sector, China will be supplying them in years to come. We can see that it's already an enormous economic power. They're already starting to move. And I think just pure self-interest should be driving Canada forward. But unfortunately, those fossil interests out in the tar sands seem to be holding Canada hostage on this. And it's sad to see.
All right, so we know now that all of us, you know, clearly have an interest in the globe. Obviously, Tim is trying to save the planet. Now, what if it doesn't work out? If it doesn't work out and we have to start making tough choices, like would you rather live on the moon or under the sea? What would Tim choose? More with Tim Flannery. Who'd you rather? When we come back.
Hi, I'm Patricia Clarkson, Emmy Award winner, Oscar nominee. Feeling pretty good. So, George, let's see what you've got. I want you to write me a love letter.
Big L or small L? Which, because they're very different, Patty.
We'll talk. No, Woody, I'm kidding. Don't get me all flustered. I'm already got red lips and red face.
Come back tomorrow in the hour, won't you? Theo Fleury, he's got a hell of a story. Theron Fleury will be here tomorrow to talk about it. The first time you hear him talk about it tomorrow on the hour. He looks good in that jersey. It's nice to see him in that flame jersey. playing great too in the preseason. More with Tim Flannery. Before we play Who'd You Rather, you're a paleontologist, right?
That's right. Yeah.
So as a guy who understands dinosaurs, I need to, just before we go any further, will the Raptors do well this year?
Don't
Because, I mean, as a basketball franchise, I'm hopeful.
I'm a member of the Square Basketball League, George. I don't watch much sport. So
Well, a raptor's a dinosaur, Tim. And,
I got that.
all right, time to play Who'd You Rather, which is a game that they play at home, but differently. Let's say the Earth is destroyed. Would you rather live under the sea or in outer space?
There is no doubt about under the sea. Can you imagine all that stuff at the bottom of the sea, the abyss, you know?
Yeah, that'd be
Those
great.
crazy creatures, whereas the moon, I think, is pretty boring.
Yeah, I'm fascinated why people spend all this time trying to explore outer space when there's so many questions and answers down there.
Do you know we've made more visits to the moon than we've made to the abyssal depths?
Really?
They've only had a single visit, and the visit to the abyssal depths was made by the US Navy, and they got such bad publicity out of it going to the bottom of
And
the world.
James Cameron.
They didn't do it again.
And James Cameron.
Yeah.
Okay, your last meal. Something from the finest chef in the world or mom's home cooking?
Last meal. Oh, gee. I think I'm going to go for the finest chef in the world. It's not saying anything about Mum's cooking, but we had three veg and meat for a long time.
Did you really?
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah.
Okay, you have to choose one of these. Would you rather own your own Hummer or a private jet?
I've got to have one.
Yep.
I couldn't drive a Hummer. There is no way I could do that. So I'd take the private jet and, who knows, use
'Cause
it
no
for
one would
good
see
or
you,
something.
right?
That's right, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so this is, I don't know how to answer this one. Would you rather end global warming but never have sex again, or
George!
or
What is this?
make a dent in global warming but you'll stop aging? This is difficult.
So hold on, is it, hold on, I can end global warming but never have sex again.
Right. Or just make a dent in global warming but you'll stay young. That strikes me as an impossible question.
It's an impossible question,
All right.
George.
The answer is forget global warming, all right?
That's right.
At the end of the day, Daddy's got needs. That's all I'm saying.
Well, this is right. Never let the perfect be the enemy of the good.
Would you rather have lunch with John Howard or Ron Howard?
Well, actually, John Howard, you know,
Okay.
because he's still a mystery to me. I don't understand the guy. Yeah,
He sat in this chair. He seems like a likable, interesting guy, but that's because he wasn't the boss anymore.
Yeah, that's right. He's changed, and we haven't heard a thing about him since he left power. You know, but
He probably got sick of reading about himself.
that's right.
He's not like Berlusconi in Italy who can't read enough. Who would you rather party with? Al Gore, Al Sharpton, or Al Green?
Al Gore for sure. He's a great guy, a hero. God, who wouldn't want to?
See if you partied with Al Gore?
Yeah, I have once. Yeah.
Like at
twice actually.
at a club with like glow sticks and whistles and people are drunk? Like, is it?
No, it wasn't that sort of party.
Okay.
No.
Have you ever had one of
It
those
was
moments though? We had a former leader of Mexico, Vicente Fox, on the show talking about getting drunk with Vladimir Putin and how weird that was when he got so liquored up. He had to put his foot on the floor to stop the room from spinning. And I would imagine you've had, I mean, you know.
Well, yeah, look, when I was in New York a couple of weeks ago, I shared a hotel with Robert Mugabe, and that was sort of pretty spooky.
What was that like? Wow.
Well, there was all these festively dressed Africans at the front, and I wondered what it was. I thought, but they're obviously all Zimbabweans were a bit angry at him. Yeah. And he just glided past with this kind of Oxford calm, you know?
Wow.
Rhodes Scholar type stuff, yeah.
Did you throw anything at him?
No, I didn't. No, I
Would you rather box a kangaroo or run a foot race against a gorilla?
definitely box a kangaroo. I know I'm a kangaroos. I did my PhD on
did?
my.
Okay,
I
good.
got a move or two on them.
Would you rather aliens visit us or we visit them?
Definitely we visit them. Yeah, when someone turns up on your doorstep, it's bad news. The American Indians will tell you that. You know.
That's true. Would you rather listen to a lecture on peak oil or an album by Midnight Oil?
Definitely an album by Midnight Oil. Definitely.
Would you rather be remembered as a scientist or an activist?
Oh, that is a really tough question too. I think I want to make change, so probably activist. Yeah.
Right on. He's got a brand new book. It's called Now or Never: Why We Need to Act Now to Achieve a Sustainable Future. It's good to see you again, man.
Great to see
Tim
you.
Flannery, everybody. We'll be right back with Patricia Clarkson.
So you're talking to Flannery.
Oh, yeah, nice guy, nice guy.
Lightweight.
He's one of the most famous activists in the world.
Yeah, mainstream activist. Not like me. I'm the real deal.
Really?
Yeah, I actually saw that guy pay for a sandwich at lunch.
So?
So, we don't support the mainstream economy.
I saw you have a Big Mac for lunch.
Yeah, but I didn't pay for it.
So what, you stole it?
Is a farmer stealing when he picks corn out of the field? No, he simply goes, picks his corn, stuffs it in a bag, and runs away. That's what I do with food, clothing, cab rides. I'm an activist.
I think you're confusing activism with common theft.
That is so bourgeois.
Whatever, Adam. I'm gonna go watch Patricia Clarkson.
You would.
Come on back. The hour continues here. Coming out of Studio 43, a mile a minute. I'm going to tell you about some of the stuff that happened in the world today, including a big award for a Canadian, also a big bomb that will not help you sleep at night. Also coming up on the show, Patricia Clarkson and 6-time Stanley Cup winner Glenn Anderson and 2-time Olympic medalist Isabelle Brasseur eliminated last night on Battle of the Blades. What happened? Did you bet on them? Nobody was doing the betting line on Battle of the Blades until the hour came along, and now we got people gambling. Which never, ever goes badly. So, if I told you to bet on Glenn Anderson, I'm sorry. A couple of records that come out today. Can we hear some background here? Brand new record from Said the Whale, a cool band from Vancouver. They have a new album called Islands Disappear. It's in the stores now. You can go to the stores. But if your record store is open at this time, you live in a cool town, or you're buying it online. I think they're actually playing tomorrow night in Waterloo. And also, if you like a kind of mellowish, soft voice singer with just enough desperation in her voice, Land of Talk out of Montreal's got a new record that came out today as well. It's a really, really good album. But before we go any further, I just need to show you my favorite headline. We like to read what's happening in the world. I want to tell you stuff that's going on in the world. And every now and then you read a headline and you just go, what? This is my favorite headline of the day. Can we pull this up here? Look at this headline. 1 gay man, 2 lesbians, a 3-legged cat, and a poisoned curry plot. You know what the story's about? Who cares? That headline's fantastic. 1 gay man. Apparently, all my friends who are gay, they don't like their friends who are lesbians. And it gets weird. And apparently somebody tried to poison somebody with curry. And slug pellets. What is going on? Anyway, that's a headline. If you want more, you can find it on our website. We'll post that story for you. Also, Stephen Lewis is coming up on the show on Thursday. Now, we've had Stephen on a couple of times. Stephen is an incredible person, an incredible Canadian. He's got a new campaign now called Dare to Remember. And what he's doing is he's challenging you to do something extraordinary to help this fight of AIDS in Africa. And a lot of people are getting involved. Jack Layton, leader of the Federal New Democrats, is busking in Toronto. So Jack will be sitting there. Jack's got good music taste, but he is in the NDP, so he's probably going to be singing Kumbaya. So we should call Jack and see what Jack's. Also, Chaos, hell of an artist, is going back to his first job at a department store to work in the toy section. So everybody's going to do something. Now, I know that when Stephen comes on the show, he's going to ask me what my dare. I don't know what to do. So I'm going to ask you, what do you think I should do? Email us, thehour@cbc.ca. We'll read them tomorrow, okay? So if you dare that you think that I can do, something that I would be normally uncomfortable doing, and keep them realistic. I'm not giving up the habs. I'm not. And I'm not growing a mustache. It's not that I don't want to, I can't, okay? And I'm not wrestling Peter Mansbridge because A, that man's a prince, and B, he can take me. The hour at cbc.ca. A lot happened in the world, my friends. Here's my just high-fived, what's your name, sir? Kevin. I just high-fived Kevin, I think, a Torma rotator cuff. Is that where your rotator cuff is? Probably not. God dang. All right. Excuse me. Should we start with the H1N1 virus, or as you like to call it in the bedroom, swine flu? A vaccine is on the way, but the question is, as always, who should get the vaccine first? How about Olympic athletes? The chief medical officer for Canada's team would like our athletes to get the vaccine first because he says the Olympic Village is actually a breeding ground for viruses, which is true, you can't argue that, but then again, so is an office or a subway, or even worse, an office in a subway. But here's what I love best. The doctor went on to say, if we end up with an outbreak in the Canadian team, it could have devastating impact on our goals of being the #1 medal nation. Never mind. Forget the pandemic. It's about getting the W, baby. It's about winning the medals. It's about owning the podium. You get the feeling, though, that some of these athletes on the Canadian team all just looked at the doctor and said, thanks. Like we're not under enough pressure already. Just win, baby. Next up, David Suzuki. David just won the Right Livelihood Award for his work to stop global warming. Now, this award was actually created to recognize people who are ignored by the Nobel Prizes, so congratulations to David Suzuki. I mean, imagine that. A guy winning a Nobel-style award for actually doing something, not the hope of something. Oh yeah, I said it. Take a look at who else has won the Nobel Peace Prize. They're not all winners either. Next, one of the countries that President Obama is trying to make peace with, of course, is Iran. Well, today, the U.S. and the Russians have promised to work together to deal with Iran. Here's what U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton had to say.
We believe that Iran is entitled to peaceful nuclear energy, but that it is not entitled to nuclear weapons. Russia agrees with us on that.
All right, so Russia and the U.S. agree Iran should not be developing nuclear weapons, which is a good first step, but that, of course, needs to be achieved with diplomacy. So what if diplomacy fails? What's the plan B? Well, the Americans have a plan B, tougher sanctions. Except Russia doesn't agree with tougher sanctions. So then what's plan C? Well, it seems the U.S. have quietly developed a 13,000-kilogram laser-guided bomb. Apparently, this bomb here can wipe out targets up to 60 meters underground. So if you're burying your weapons down... Now, the Americans say this was not designed with Iran in mind. But, you know, if the shoe fits, and really nothing says Nobel Peace Prize like a 30,000-pound bomb. Yeah, that's right, I said it again. Good news and bad news on global security. The good news is apparently Al-Qaeda broke. They're in trouble financially because American officials have done a really good job, as they say, of choking off Al-Qaeda's ability to raise money for recruitment and training. That is the good news. So the bad news is Taliban are loaded. They have no problem thanks to what they're calling private backers in the Gulf region and the illegal drug trade in Afghanistan. So basically, while we all watched The Wire for its gripping drama, the Taliban just used it as a training manual. Thanks, HBO. Hey, to Japan, there's a bunch of new CDs that teach people how to speak English, and they all have the same teacher, Barack Obama. It's the Obama News. Here are some of the titles, though. Speech training, learning to deliver English speech Obama style. These are real. Learn English grammar from Obama, and yes, I can with Obama, 40 magical English phrases from presidential emails. Officials actually expect us to do a lot better than the last CD called Is Our Children Learning English Speaking Bush Style? So apparently what happened was this guy named Gary was as loggerheads with a couple of women who lived next to him. So what he did was he tried to poison them by putting slug pellets in their curry after they accused him of kidnapping their three-legged cat. Settled now? Good. All right, everybody. The hour rolls on with one of the best Hollywood has to offer. Patricia Clarkson is here. First, her bio.
George, I have to warn you, Patricia Clarkson is one of a kind. Classy, elegant, sexy, and super talented. Sort of an old school glamour. Not exactly a blockbuster queen, but definitely a scene stealer. So, George, try to keep it together.
All right, girls. No more beating around the bush.
Patricia grew up in New Orleans, got her Master's of Fine Arts at Yale, did theater in New York, and at 28 made her Hollywood debut as Mrs. Elliot Ness, Kevin Costner's wife in The Untouchables. Patricia played a lot of those wifely types at first, but by her mid-30s, the roles became more diverse. From heavy drama to light comedy, Patricia became very much in demand. And her resume? Pretty impressive. The Green Mile, Vicky Cristina Barcelona, Good Night and Good Luck.
Name me another wife who reminds her husband to take off his wedding ring before he goes to the office.
The Station Agent, Far From Heaven.
Call me old-fashioned. I just like all the men I'm around to be all men.
And Pieces of April, which earned Patricia an Oscar nod for Best Supporting Actress. Oh, and don't forget her recurring role in 6 Feet Under.
I am just so lucky.
2 Emmy Awards for that, by the way. And if you love Saturday Night Live, you know Patricia from Mother Lover.
Oh, every Mother's Day needs a Mother's Night. Yeah. Doing it is wrong. I don't want to be right.
Now she has a new film, Cairo Time. It won the Best Canadian Feature Award at this year's Toronto Film Festival.
So, what would you like to do?
Explore.
Hey, everybody, please welcome back to the hour, Patricia Clarkson. Lovely to see you again.
Nice to see you.
How are you?
I'm very good. I'm well. I'm very well.
You're very well?
I love being in Canada.
In Cairo time, you are a Canadian.
Yes, I am.
Do you prepare differently for a character when you're Canadian?
Oh, you always have to prepare to be a Canadian. You have to prepare to be nice and kind.
How much preparation?
And good in bed. No. Can I say that on the hour?
You can say whatever you like. I don't remember that scene though in the film. I don't.
That was just my fantasy.
That's not it's a complicated picture, I think, because you're expected to do a lot with, but in a very subtle way.
Very.
I mean, and I wondered for you, like, is that the sort of role you were looking for? Did it just happen that way?
It was. I mean, I do a lot of character work. I've done a lot of, very extreme characters at times in my career, and Juliet was so distilled and so simple, and it requires so much of you to do so little. I didn't realize how much I had to kind of shift my entire body, my whole mindset, because I'm on fire. And Juliet is not ice in any way. She's a very warm and kind woman, but she's the woman I want to be. But it was a real change for me, a big change.
You got a Woody Allen picture coming up.
Well, yes, it has another one. Yeah. I had Vicky Cristina, and then I just did Whatever Works with Larry David, my second Woody. Woody.
Did he write you a love letter? How did he get you in this picture?
Yes, he did. He wrote me a love letter. I want you to write me a love letter.
Big L or small L? Which, because they're very different, Patty.
We'll talk. No, Woody, I'm kidding. Don't get me all flustered. I've already got I love red lips and red face.
Well, just you wait till because in this Woody, he wrote you a letter to get you in the film.
He wrote me a letter to get me in the first one, a beautiful letter, and he said, if you have something better to do, I'll understand. And then he wrote me another beautiful letter to get me to do Whatever Works, which was this extraordinary divine part. I get to play, I'm a Southern woman, I was born and raised in the South, and this is a great, crazy, wild Southern character that he wrote for a woman of a certain age, and yet she's sexy and vibrant and powerful. And I mean, like Juliet in the opposite way, it's just these great parts for women. I'm very, very lucky that I get to play them.
In the letter that he wrote you and asked you to do, did he tell you about the key scene, or was that a surprise?
Oh, no. He never tells you any. He just sends you the script. I got the whole script on this one, and because sometimes he'll just send you your scenes, Woody. It's like, here is what I want you to do, and because he sometimes doesn't like you to know the whole script.
Because I guess the character wouldn't know the whole script,
That's what
right?
he feels. You don't need to know what else is going on. Mm-hmm. And so then other people on the set are like, so what happens to everybody else? And everybody's trying to, confer. But yeah, on Whatever Works, he sent me the whole script and said, if you like it, let me know. I mean, he's very casual. It's a very interesting, coming from a genius, how he operates.
And not to fluster you anymore.
Oh, God.
But he wrote you into a threesome in this film, right?
Okay, yeah.
When you get to that scene, and I'm actually curious, I mean, obviously the threesome part is
my mother and father loved it. They loved that part. Loved it. They're still recovering.
But I often wonder when an actor reads a script, when they go through the screenplay, they go, oh, well, now that's a twist.
Yeah. No, but how lucky am I to be in bed with two men? Come on.
Well said. Well said. Now, I mean, so you've got a film like this, which is obviously a very different energy than a film like Cairo Time.
Very. I mean, they're antithetical, and the characters are antithetical, and that's why I became an actor. I love opposite. I love the dichotomy. I love that my life is, I never know what I'm doing. I never know where I'm going to be and what energy I'm going to be in. And so to shoot these films, I shot them back to back almost last summer. Mm-hmm. When we went to Cairo for 7 weeks.
What was that like there? Is that your first time there?
Yes. Yeah. Has anyone else? I mean, if anyone has ever been to Cairo here, I mean, it's overwhelming, and it has aching poverty and aching beauty at the same time, and so you have to kind of acclimate to that tone and energy, and it's also the noisiest city in the world. So you are really dealing, you have to really reprocess. And I was a little frightened to go, an American in Cairo, American actress shooting this film that everyone knew about.
You know, a political, obviously, situation there for a lot of people. You're no stranger to politics. You have a very interesting family, right? I mean, your father has a park named after him.
Well, my grandfather.
Your grandfather.
Yes,
and your
very...
mother's an elected official, right?
My mother's president of the city council of all of New Orleans.
Of all of New Orleans. Nice.
Yes.
Well,
she's remarkable. Yes.
I suppose all that's going to leave a mark on you. And your dad opened hospitals?
My dad worked at LSU Medical School. Yes, my father's a very accomplished man. But probably my father's greatest accomplishment is he raised 5 daughters and he's still alive. Love him, still love him, we worship him. He can do no wrong. My mother, my father.
So I suppose choosing strong, independent roles, I mean, having your mother being who she is, that would have an impact too.
Yes, of course. My mother, you know, we are 5 very strong women, individual, and we're all professional. But my other sisters, they have children, they're married and children.
What's Thanksgiving dinner like at your place?
Oh my God. Well, I mean, it's glorious, but it is, it's exhausting.
Do you all revert back to the roles you had when you were?
Oh, always. Yeah? Always. I'm always the baby of 5 girls. No matter where I go, no matter what I accomplish, I'm the baby of 5 girls.
Did they ever talk to you about, what was that project you did, Flipped? You're 13 years old, the feminist teacher you had that you did a play?
When I played Flipped, you know, oh my God, how do you know about that?
It's what we do here.
When I can't, my God, what else do you know about me?
Just you wait. Just you wait, Clarkson.
No, I mean, when I did Flipped, which was in 8th grade, that feminist play. It was one of the first big plays I did in junior high school. Feminist Liberation Idealist Party for Permanent Equality and Democracy. Yeah, it was called Flipped.
Well, when you're 13, 14 years old, 13, what's that? I mean, you've got a teacher who clearly was apparently a strong feminist, coaching you through that. How important to your life was that moment?
Oh, I was surrounded all my life by strong women, opinionated women, you know, bright, sexy, educated, tormented. And I loved it. That's how I grew up. I grew up with, I think the most remarkable thing my parents instilled in me was to be confident, to have confidence in myself, and confidence as a woman that I can really accomplish anything. And in this business, this, you know, in Hollywood of all places, this difficult, ageist, you know, slightly misogynistic business, you know, it has carried me a long way. And I'm lucky, I'm single. I don't have to worry about, you know, school, you know, my children in school, or a husband. You know, I'm
It's funny that you say that, because if
fancy free.
you can Facebook her if you want, and find, or just Twitter Patricia if you like. If you were a man, no one would ask you about the fact that you're being single. But I mean,
yes, but I'm asked it all the time, and I'm used to it.
As your career has gone on, though, do the questions go away or do they increase?
Oh, they increase. So you're not married. You don't have, you know, did you ever want to? You know, I mean, I'm always asked those things. But now I think people know. I mean, now I've been in the public eye enough where people, I think, you know I don't have children. But I've had extraordinary relationships. I mean, I've dated amazing men in my life. And I've almost kind of had like little mini marriages, it feels like, you know, because I've been lucky enough to have.
You just haven't involved a priest, that's all.
Yes, they haven't involved, yeah.
Or as many lawyers, I
well,
imagine.
on certain occasions. No, oh my God, I'm going to hell.
There you go. The film is called Cairo Time. It opens all across Canada, October the 23rd. Patricia Clarkson, we'll be right back. Thank you so much. All right, their numbers are dwindling. Up next, the second eliminated pair from Battle of the Blades.
Now I ask you very confidentially, ain't she sweet? Ain't she nice?
All right, you're back here on the hour. Miss Patricia Clarkson was just here. I'm not gonna lie, that was one of the flirtiest interviews I've ever been a part of.
I mean, no, that's not true. I mean, there was the time Farley Mowat was here. That got very different. All right, over the weekend, it was week number 2 for Battle of the Blades. We're down to 6 couples now. Another couple is out. The dramatic moment happened. Take a look.
Now I ask you very confidentially, ain't she nice? Ain't she sweet? See her coming down.
And that might have been the moment. That might have been the moment. But look, man, Anderson's wearing figure skates. They have the toe pick on. That thing was just unnatural. Toe picks are unnatural. Glenn Anderson, Isabel Brasseur, they were eliminated last night. Let's say hello. Bring them on up. Glenn Anderson, Isabel Brasseur.
Thanks for having us.
No problem. All right, so listen, I'm assuming this is a shock to you.
Yeah, me falling?
Yeah. Did you know at that moment, did you just go, oh, here we go?
Well, I asked earlier in the week, I go, well, what happens if you fall? It's like one of those, you're going, oh no, here we go. But I toe picked at least 20 times, learning how to skate like that. And we've got the real toe picks in there, and I think the only other skater with that was Craig Simpson, right?
A little bit last week. Yeah, he slightly toe picked.
But with the real toe picks in their skates, a lot of the guys have carved them off.
Really?
Yeah, and we kept mine in there, so it's the real deal. You could tell I was trying to get up like a hockey skate.
It was a loud one too. I wasn't looking because I was turning, and I heard this. I'm like, ooh.
It hurts.
So you know what's going on at that point, right?
Well, when I heard the noise, I was like, oh, that did not sound good. And then I turned around, I'm like, ooh, that's not looking good as he's trying to get up.
It's so graceful, right?
Well, I imagine, like, I know that the Battle of the Blades, it's fun, and but this is your area of expertise. You know how to get around the ice, and I know hockey players, to be a good champion, you got to be competitive, probably a bit insane about how competitive you are. So when you get into a situation where it's about winning, were you actually were you into that headspace? We got to win, and then the competition just takes over?
I think we're all very competitive. In each of our sport, we're very competitive. We haven't made it that far if we were not that competitive. So I think when we all stepped out there, we definitely wanted to perform and give it our best. And we're happy we got to skate last night and do great last night.
Twice. Yeah, Monday night's pressure, I tell you, it's nothing to compared to Game 7 of the hockey game. At least I know what's going on. You've rehearsed it many times before, but I tell you, the nerves and the anxiety before going out there were incredible. So the utmost respect for figure skating, and especially my partner turned it up about 3 levels on that Monday night. It was amazing. Like all of a sudden, she's got this gear. She went from first gear right into 4th gear, and this look, I went, okay, I'll just try to keep up.
And can a figure skater tell when their partner has that moment of fear? Can you tell when your partner's going there?
We just met not too long ago, so like a month or so ago. So it's hard sometimes to read people, but you definitely, the more that the week we're going and the days we're going, you could definitely tell some days that Glenn would look at me like, you want me to try what?
Are you kidding me?
So yeah, yes, definitely. The more we were going, the more I could tell that
Now, let's put the odds on the board. Now we keep, because we're not that we're encouraging gambling, but what the hell, you're all grown-ups. You're up late enough. Here are the odds for how we expect people to do. Jory Middlestat's been running the odds. So Duguay and Underhill, who have come, like the Manther and company, have just made their way to the top. Simpson had a great skate. Ken Danico has come back. How do you guys assess the odds, and do you have a person you think can win? What partner, Isabel?
I'm betting on you.
Mrs., I would only skate on there with you to fall into your arms. Because I would fall all the time. When you only fell it twice, I was like, shit, man, way better than I would have done.
She was like this.
Have her. Who do you think can do it? Can you bet on this now?
Well, don't take us. There's a couple guys that are right into it. After this next round, you'll see another level. Guys are going to get serious. You'll see them getting dead serious. There's a couple guys that are kind of going, okay, yes, I had a good time. Thanks for coming. The rest of the crew from the top 5 on who's going to be left they're into it big time. So, and they're going to do whatever it takes. Who knows? Tanya Harding might be part of it. I don't know what might come out.
Look, Ty Domi is still in, man. Ken Danico is still in. This could happen. If you want to keep track of the odds for Battle of the Blades, go to our website, which is cbc.ca/the hour. We've got them posted. You can find them there each and every week. It's good to see the two champs on the show. Isabel Brasseur, Glenn Anderson, thanks for coming in. Tomorrow's headline is next. We love her. Catherine O'Hara tomorrow on the hour. Please come back and join us. One of the voices of the Wild Things are. I think over the holiday weekend, I spent, I probably saw six, seven movies over the holiday weekend, including Where the Wild Things Are. Catherine O'Hara does the voice in that. She is the best part of that film. Tomorrow night, Theron Fleury will be here. His career, his comeback, and the allegations against his former coach. Thanks to Tim Flannery and Patricia Clarkson. Here's tomorrow's headline tonight.